I've always had this saying, when it comes to realism, whatever happens in the shadows doesn't matter. And it doesn't mean that it's not important or that you don't need to think about the shadows as a crucial part of your painting. Here's what it means. For the shadows, you can pretty much paint them however you like, even with some pretty funky ideas, and still get away with it. Want some blue in there? Sure, why not? Want some purple? You bet. Maybe even a stroke of orange. Well, try doing that in the middle of the light side, let's say on the forehead or in the middle of the nose. It will certainly look very weird. The colors of the light side need to stick to relative realism to be convincing, but the colors of the shadows have a lot more creative leeway. Here's the truth. Shadows are not just darker colors. They have a life of their own. They have their own unique vibration, relatively independent from the lights. So if you've been just adding black all the time to mix your shadows, you've been missing out on one of the biggest creative opportunities in painting. Talking about missed opportunities, let me tell you about the brand new Atelier newsletter, because you don't want to miss this one. And before you skip, no, it's not a shameless plug because I have nothing to sell. It's totally free and the content is very similar to what I do in my videos. Basically, the newsletter is my way of starting the week every Monday with a subject that I'll then explore in my streams, my shorts, and like I'm doing here, in a YouTube video. Think of it as being allowed to have a sneak peek at my script for the upcoming content of the week. It's also a way for us to connect outside of the closed circuit of YouTube as it's delivered straight to your inbox. So start your creative week with inspiration from the Atelier newsletter by subscribing with the link below. So what color is a shadow? Most people think, oh, it's just a darker version of the local color. Nope. Shadows have temperature, and if you ignore that, you will flatten your paintings. Here's the trick. Color temperature in the shadows should be treated as some sort of vibration. And it's not about realism. You can have fun with this idea. A golden sunset, why not try blue or purple shadows? A cloudy, overcast sky, why not make your shadows warm and earthy? Why not green? And we tried this in our most recent stream session, using this portrait to demonstrate this idea with very small color studies. The plan was to paint all the light parts first, independently from the shadows, and see how far we can push the color experiment and keep the shadows realistic and good looking. So here, for the first mini study, I start with a flat, pure red background. Then I move on with a pure, flat color blob. And of course, this sucks. It's not for no reason that the title of this video is Why Shadows Are Not Just Darker Colors. There you can see why. So, how can we make it evolve from there? The idea is that colors of the shadows can be modified almost at will to vibrate with the colors of their environment. So here in this case, it's the red. What can we do? We can first try to make the shadows the same color as the environment. So I just add a touch of red with the colors of my shadow mix on my palette. It's very easy, and you see how you can just integrate it and blend it with the rest. And you can be pretty assertive with the red, and somehow it still works. Of course, here it's a very, very tiny little color study, but I mean, the principle is the same. You can do that, you can just integrate it and have a little bit better brushwork to make it more seamless, but it will work because it's part of the shadows. You can't do that in the middle of the nose, but you can do that in the shadows. Now I want to insist on the idea of vibration. Let's take a color that's completely the opposite of the red background and try to make it vibrate. A complete clash. In this case, I would need some cyan, like a cobalt teal, because it's the complementary. It's the color that's the furthest away from the red in our color wheel. First, we are going to just scratch off the old colors, and here you can still see, even in this state, that it's not that bad. Like, it doesn't fully break the realism. Look at this. Try doing this on the light side of the face. Just saying. That's why I said that what happens in the shadows doesn't really matter. Now look at how a complementary tone works and integrates and blends seamlessly. The range is pretty wild in the shadows. I can also add some purple or magenta. It's pretty crazy. See, there's a lot of fun, creative opportunities in the shadows without ruining the realism. And of course, it is better if it makes sense in relation to the surrounding colors and if it works in harmony with the rest. But you can also create a sort of dissonance. And the way I see it, it's similar to distortion in an electric guitar. It's not supposed to happen, like it was created by accident at first, but you can do some pretty cool things with this idea. The same way that distortion is absolutely freaking awesome in metal, you can be pretty metal with your colors and use this idea of vibration and dissonance. So really keep this in mind when it comes to the shadows, and you'll discover some amazing opportunities to make your colors more metal and more distorted. Shadows are not just one dead color. Ever seen a painting where the shadows look like a big lifeless blob? So that's how we start these little demonstration studies here. That's what happens when shadows are just treated as a sort of a single, flat, uniform tone. And what's happening is really that shadows are layered. There are the core shadows, the reflected lights, some transitions, some areas are crisp and dark, others are soft and glowing. Classical painters knew that, and they made sure to make the shadows rich with color and life and adding a lot of variety. So whenever you mix your shadows, don't just mix one shadow color for the entire thing, mix 2 or 3, 4, 5, and try to create some variety, some much needed variety, both in value and in hue. This is what's going to make your shadow colors look more realistic and more vibrant. Reflected light, the hidden color lurking in the shadows. This is the part that most beginners miss. Light doesn't just stop when it hits an object, it bounces. A red shirt, a red wall, it's gonna throw some warm red tones in the shadows. A blue sky is then just gonna be cooling down the shadows under the nose, or in the cast shadow, the shadow of a tree, for example, can have some blue kind of undertones. If you check out a classical portrait, if you look at the jawline, there's usually a soft, warm, yellow-orange glow right under the kind of the shadow of the chin. That's reflected light at work. So try this for your next painting. You identify a sort of a major shadow shape in your painting and you ask yourself what colors are nearby. So for example, if it's red, you sneak a little bit of that red color and put it in the shadow, and boom, instant realism and instant liveliness for your shadows. So double effect, it's creating some cool vibrations, and it's also creating some amazing, and in this case, some very accurate realism. 4. Never use black for shadows. Well, almost never. I get it. Black is a convenient pigment, but pure black, it will just only kill the vibrancy of your shadows. The old masters rarely used black alone for the shadows. Instead, they mixed deep colors like burnt umber, ultramarine, alizarin crimson to create some rich, lively darkness. So it means that if you're only making your shadow colors with black, unfortunately, you're missing out on so much. So next time, try this. Replace your black with a deep, dark color mix. Ultramarine and burnt sienna, for example. Ultramarine and burnt umber. Instant, rich black. Experiment with transparent pigments. They can also make some shadows glow. One of my favorite is quinacridone magenta and phthalo green. It's insane, it's explosive, but it's fun. Also, what you can do is you can take some of this black and, don't use it pure. And you might think, well, what's the point of taking a black pigment and just adding some more in that? Isn't that just dark enough as it is? Well, it's dark, but it's not rich in hue. It's not rich in chroma. It's not rich in undertones. And by, let's say, adding some alizarin crimson straight into your black, straight into your ivory black, you can make it so much more interesting. Let's say for the corner of the mouth, just use some pure black mixed with alizarin crimson. It's going to look awesome. So what did we learn? Shadows aren't just dark blobs, they have temperature, they have complexity, they have vibrations. So now try this in your studio. Next time you paint, just don't darken. Observe, see how the colors, the temperature, the subtle shifts work. Paint with that in mind and your shadows will look just awesome. Want to see this in action? You can join the Atelier of Figurative Arts community. All the links will be below. We break down techniques like this all the time, and you can even share your work for critique in the Discord. It's totally free, so check all the links below for more information. Until next time, my friends, joy and inspiration to you. Check out this video next.